I played Europa Universalis 5. Here's everything you need to know. In this video, I'll be going over the mechanics, gameplay, and vibe of EU5 so far based on my experience playing it over the last couple of weeks. Since we only have 30 minutes for this one, I won't be telling you my opinions about the game. That'll be on the 11th of May, so subscribe for more EU5 content now and in the future. This video is not sponsored by Paradox Interactive. With all that said, here's your first look at the most ambitious, complex, and grand strategy game Paradox has ever made. Alright, here we are finally in EU5, ladies and gentlemen. This is the country selection screen of your new favorite game. I'm the Red Hawk, a Paradox game content creator, and I'm very excited to be covering EU5 as it comes out and when it does come out. But yeah, this is the screen you'll be greeted with right at the start of the game, man. If you hover over a country, you'll gain some brief information about what kind of country it is, settled, for example, a monarchy, the rank of a country, the ruler, the other religion, the culture, capital, urban locations, cities and towns, the population, and the tax base. And if you do end up clicking on a country, it'll tell you more information like the culture and the religion breakdown, the ruler, and these two right here are the most important things when selecting a new country. These are the unique events that a certain country gets, and these are the unique country bonuses that every country has, whether it's government reforms, estate privileges, advances, and whatnot. For the purposes of this explanation, we're gonna go ahead and jump in as Serbia right here, because I do think it is actually a very good beginner nation, probably one of the best. Now, once you jump in as any country in the game, you will be greeted with this UI right here, ladies and gentlemen, and it is looking better every day. I didn't like it right at the start, but I'm gonna be honest, it is growing on me. Before we get into some gameplay, let's go ahead and explain some things if you're seeing Europa Universalis for the first time. Up in the top left, you have your character. Obviously, that's the ruler. They are more important than in EU4, but not as important as I thought they'd be, when they got full character models. Over here are all of the things you can do as the ruler. You can see the dynasty he belongs to and some info about that, his predecessors, his heirs, culture, religion, and his skills that range from 0 to 100 in each category: admin, diplo, and mil. After that, you have your country. If you click on the flag, it opens up these tabs right here. We are the Kingdom of Serbia. This is the country tab. Over here, you have your estates. A lot of estates do start off with many privileges granted. As you can see, the nobles here in Serbia have 8 privileges granted, whereas the burghers and the peasants don't have any. The crown right here is different. It's an estate, but it doesn't have privileges. It has reforms, and this is basically where the government reforms from EU4 have been moved. So some you can select, some you can't, because you need other things to go through. Most countries will only be able to pick 2 right at the start. Other countries like the Ottomans, which are in my opinion the most fun country in EU5, can get 3. So yeah, these are the estates. In some ways less powerful than in EU5, as in you don't get as many instant bonuses from them. In more ways more powerful, because the entire population, which we'll get to soon, does belong to any of these estates right here. So you do feel like these guys are actually there, since every single citizen belongs to one of these. Then you have the parliament. You can call these guys to get various bonuses. Usually you call the parliament and you choose this option right here, because this is one of the only ways to get a CB in the game. And speaking of CBs, the main CB right now in EU5 is no CB. This is something a lot of people have been complaining about or have strong opinions. I do hope that Paradox does change this, because getting CBs is really difficult, and conquest ones basically don't exist aside from events and whatnot. So yeah, that's the parliament. Then we move on to the cabinet right here, probably the most important mechanic in EU5. This is where you do everything. So I'm just gonna scroll through this list right here. Obviously, we don't have time to explain all of these, but you're gonna want to increase control. This is integrating provinces, pretty much coring if you're familiar with EU4. It takes a really long time, and almost every country has 2 of these right at the start. Florence has 3, I know, and Ottomans have 4, which once again makes them one of the fastest and most powerful countries in the game. So the cabinet, probably the most important mechanic in EU5. Not sure how much I I'm a fan of this since everything goes through this. Then we move on to various laws you can do right here. Up here you have the values, another very important mechanic for EU5. It basically steers one way or the other. Some are objectively best, and I don't know why you would pick other ones like decentralization, but I guess they're there, so maybe you can go ahead and steer the other way. These are pretty tough to move, and you're gonna want to use the cabinet on this, but you do gain events and parliament stuff to move them left and right. And then you have the missions, probably the least important part about EU5. Once you start out the game and you see all these pop-ups up here, what you're gonna do on the mission one is probably right click it, although I have been told that it's basically not even worth it to show this because this is going to change massively. So not a fan of the missions, not really important, not worth mentioning. And that's pretty much the government tab. Then we go into the economy right here. You got various sliders, obviously, for everything, taxing and making money and whatnot. No money from trade because we're not trading just yet. Over here is the market map mode. We are present in these various markets right here. The current meta is after after a couple of years at the start of the game and you build some buildings, you establish your own market because you can create your own market, your own trade node. I recommend doing that unless you own the province where the market is specifically located. For example, as Naples, you wouldn't build a market, or as Venice, or as Hungary, or someone like that. But over here, for example, as Serbia, it might be worth it, or actually is definitely worth it for us to start a market. Maybe even, if you're playing as someone in the south of France, if you're playing as someone like over here, and you basically take over parts of various other markets. And these are various, modifiers that are right here. And then in the trading tab, more on that later once we actually start trading. But this is a very important thing you want to do at the start. Then in the production, we have all these different buildings right here. Something I don't really like about buildings is how they're, various things just with different names. There are literally hundreds of buildings in EU4, boys. I recommend, all of these guilds, right? There are various guilds. Why not just call the building a guild and just build it everywhere? They don't really need to be split that much in this view, in my opinion. Over here is the goods, all of these goods that we have in the country, how much we have them, the price, how much they are getting produced, how many buildings are producing them and whatnot. And of course, food, very important. We are having a very good stockpile of food here, at least as Serbia. And then we move on into the society tab right here. You can see the breakdown of the cultures in your country. This isn't very readable. I wish it was bigger. Hopefully it will be. Some works of art right here. Religion, you can see religious unity, the religion breakdown, the various patriarchates, at least for the Orthodox guys. Obviously the papacy would be here for the Catholic guys. Liturgical language, and over here you have the people breakdown with the rebels and whatnot, and which social classes / estates they belong to. In the diplomacy tab, you need to click the diplomacy tab and then open all diplomatic actions, which is not something I like. Diplomacy, I had big expectations of. Currently, I wouldn't say it's better than EU4. I would say it's on par with EU4. I hope it will get better, and I think it has the potential to be by far the best diplomatic system in any Paradox game. But yeah, diplomacy, not really a lot to say. And over here, we can see all of the organizations that are available to us on the map. HRE, Ilkhanate, the Constantinople Patriarchate, the Tatar Yoke, the Kingship of Ireland, the guys in Italy, which are siding with the French or the Pope, the Lordship of Ireland, another Patriarchate, the Swiss Confederation, and another Patriarchate that only Bulgaria is a part of. Then you have the military department, more on this later. You generally play with levies and mercenaries at the start of the game. Mercenaries are absolutely cracked. Me and Leith played as the nation of Worms and Aspire, and with only 1,000 mercenaries, we managed to defeat the Palatinate, Upper and Lower Bavaria, Austria, Brandenburg, and Brabant. So I think Berks will need a few tweaking. Not a lot of countries can get regulars at the start. We can't either because we don't have a building, even though it says, that we can have it. There we go. We can start building one. That's the sergeantry. So yeah, you won't really be using a lot of these right at the start. Army automation is actually pretty good, way, way better than EU4. Then you got the geopolitics, which is basically exploration, maritime, and diseases right here that can spawn. As we all know, the Black Death is coming right up in about 9 years. And you can explore and colonize from the start of the game with pretty much any nation. It's just insanely expensive, and it really doesn't make sense to do it as most guys even at the start. And then finally we have the advances tab, which is also in here and in here, so you can click this in 3 different places. Probably the second most important mechanic after after the cabinet in EU5, in my opinion. If you open, this thing up right here, and you can see the entire advances tree in the Age of Traditions, for example. This, in my opinion, is the second most important mechanic in EU5 because it's an amalgamation, if you're familiar with EU4, of national ideas, idea groups, and technology, and even some stuff that you would get from government reforms. So to break down the advances tree for the Age of Traditions right here, each institution, and there's 3 for every age, has its own branch. Right? Not really for the first one, but if, for example, if we go into the Age of Renaissance, banking is one institution, and this is its branch. Then we have professional armies, and this is its branch. And then we have the Renaissance branch, another institution down here. And then we have this one, which is sort of a generic one. And then in every age, you gain an additional one based on what you choose to focus on. Once every age starts, and Renaissance starts in about 2 or 3 years right here, you either go admin focus, which opens up an admin diplo tree, diplo focus, which opens up a diplo tree, or mill focus, which opens up a mill tree. Back in the Age of Traditions, because we do have feudalism and legalism, for example, as Serbia here, and actually every nation in EU4, we've pretty much completed the feudalism and legalism branches right here, right? The game has completed it for us. But because we don't have meritocracy, Asian nations have this, the meritocracy branch for us is grayed out. So once you embrace an institution, which costs stability and is really expensive, then you can start working your way down that branch. Something else to note right here is, for example, we do have generic and unique ones. The generic ones are sort of like tech and ideas, and then the unique ones for me are like idea groups. For example, we got this because we are Christian, just generally Christian. And then if we move this way, we got this just because we're just a monarchy, a generic monarchy. Going over on this side, this one we have just because we're Orthodox, right? This one we have just because we're Serbia, right? And this one right here. So I wish, in the country selection screen, it was more clear how many of these you got as a specific country, but it is pretty good. So this is, for example, the Age of Traditions tree. This is the Age of Renaissance one. We got the Age of Discovery. You got the Age of Reformation, Confessionalism, Siege Artillery, Global Trade, Age of Absolutism, Manufactories, Scientific Revolution, Military Revolution. Finally, the Age of Revolutions, we got the Industrialization, we got Levy en masse right there, and we got the Enlightenment. Let's see if Serbia has any unique ones down here, and it does. For example, plus 10% infantry power, which is pretty much like combat ability. In my opinion, that and the cabinet are the most important mechanics in EU5. Up here, you got a breakdown of the estates real quick, on a quick glance, and their, share of power. Over here, you have your ducats, your current treasury, stability, which ranges from -100 to +100. Up here is your, quick breakdown of the population. If legitimacy you're familiar with, prestige, diplomatic capacity, it works different. There aren't physical diplomat guys, it's just capacity. So for now, it's 5. Let's say we improve relations with someone, it costs 0.25, this will go down to 4. And with spending in the balance tab, you can decrease or increase your diplomatic capacity, and there's more ways to get it. Then it's war exhaustion, we don't have it. Manpower, we don't have it because we need buildings for manpower, obviously, like I explained. And then we have the sailors, and obviously over here are your pop-ups. And I'm so glad they've kept the same pop-ups pretty much from U4 because it is the best pop-up system in the game. Then on the right side, you have, the age thing, what I just showed off. We have the ledger, which has an insane amount of information. It's very, very, very superior to EU4. You got the search bar, you got the Europedia, which is basically like the wiki, but integrated in the game. And then you have automation. Now, the game will prompt you to choose a playstyle at the start when you pick a country, and then it automates everything else for you. If you're a newer player, if you're just starting off EU4, I recommend automating the trader, but turning off balance and trade. After that, once you get a little bit better at the game, you actually turn everything else off, but you can go ahead and automate trade once you go ahead and set up the entire trade for the game. Automation works really good. This is one of the best things about the game, and it's definitely going to make playing huge nations, it's going to make them a lot easier to play because you do need to hand off a lot of things to the AI in this game. because there's just absolutely a ton of stuff to always do. So that's the automation right there, hints and advances, and that's the main menu right there. Over here you can pin that, and down here finally we have the map modes, ladies and gentlemen. This is the political map mode, the integration map mode. This is pretty much like cores in EU4. Then you got the raw material, which is like trade goods, control, which is like autonomy. 100 control is good. It's pressed from your capital. Low control is bad. Then you got proximity. The closer something is to your capital, the better you have control over it. This can be mended, you know, with advisors, or sorry, cabinet members, and roads, and building various buildings. It is pretty tough to get a hold of it in the early game. Then you got the roads. You do want to build up roads. It's super fun, honestly. One of the most fun things in the game for me. These are all the roads that exist. Markets already showed off. This is the population map mode. This is the culture map mode breakdown. This is the religion one. Institutions, probably the worst one. It doesn't really tell you anything. Diplomacy map mode, antagonism, and these are just ones that I've added down here, by the way. That is not how the game is. And if you're wondering why it's flat and why there's no geographical map mode, well, that's because I play with that map mode off. This is what it would look like for most other content creators' videos that you're watching. I gotta say, it is probably the best one out of like Imperator, CK, and Victoria. I do enjoy it quite a lot. I just don't like the tilting, you know? I don't want it to be tilted. This is pretty good right here, and this is what the naked map mode looks like, ladies and gentlemen. I got some settings turned down. It looks way better than this with all the settings up, but I do think it's superior to every other Paradox title so far. I'm just not a fan of this one. All right, let's get into some gameplay. If you're enjoying this EU5 video and want to see more, why not hit that subscribe button? More EU5 content coming very soon. So once you start the game as any nation, man, the first thing I like to do is actually go over here in the advances, and I like to queue up everything I want to research. I'm going to go ahead and queue directly to food production over here. Then let's move on down to maximum RGO size in rural. This basically means how much of the goods we can exploit and whatnot. So let's move on to that. Then I want to do construction speed. Then I'm going to do trade capacity right here. Then let's do, for example, institution growth. And then let's move down to diplomatic capacity, and let's do monthly diplomats right here. So we've queued up pretty much everything we can queue up for now. Later, of course, as we move into the Age of Renaissance in a few years, we'll queue up some more things. And when we unlock meritocracy and institutions, we'll queue up even more. Okay, now that that's out of the way, you can start dealing with some of the green pop-ups right here. You're going to want to get your laws codified. So once you click over here on the laws, it'll take you to this screen right here, the levy age. I like to go with this one right here. You can pause and read what the other ones did since we don't have a lot of time. Then employment system, I like to go most profitable first. These are, I haven't really noticed the intricate details in which one of these you go to, but capital economy is something you do want to steer towards. And we have another law right here, the precious metal distribution. I like to go regulated export. Then you can do possible cabinet actions. Like I said, some of the most important parts of the game. So first thing, what we're going to want to do right here while we're still at peace is actually increase control. Now, I like to increase control in the province in which the capital location is in, or if it's already pretty high right there, you can do it somewhere else. So there we go. I'm going to increase control in my capital province of Kosovo right here, where the capital itself of Prizren is located. Let's try and get it up to 100. That's going to be very nice. Now, you might think, get another guy to increase control, but no, only one guy can increase control. So what I like to do with the other guy, super important right at the start, is stabilize the country so we don't have to waste that much money on actually stabilizing. And then obviously this is admin, this is mill focus. The game, once you go into a point cabinet member right here, it'll automatically sort the highest admin guy and you can hire him. These are pretty much like advisors in EU4, except way more important. And then we're also going to select this guy to stabilize the country. Next, we're going to go ahead and select some rivals. As Serbia at the start, I found, obviously you want to rival the Byzantines, then you want to rival Bosnia, and then you can do whoever you want. I'm going to do Croatia right here. And as you can see, once the cabinet members start doing some things, it'll show up on the map. We can see the guy increasing control in Kosovo. Then you get the possible reforms right here. And what we're going to do right here is basically choose our government reforms. If you're a generic monarchy, obviously you're going to pick up autocracy because you do want to get crown power up. It's very important to get crown power up. And then agricultural cultivation isn't bad at all because food production is super important. Of course, there's a lot of other things to choose from over here based on your playstyle and based on what you want to do, you know, trading, vassal play, and whatnot. But we are going to go agricultural cultivation right here. As we can see, the nobles already have a ton of privileges, so I'm not going to grant them anything. You can pause the video right here and float on some of these privileges. Obviously, some don't have icons right here, and you can see what they do. And basically, you know, the nobles are satisfied. Clergy already have some things right here, but I am going to go ahead and grant them more. For example, we're going to give them Clerical Advisory Council for cabinet efficiency. Then I'm going to do this for stability investment as well. Like I said, stability is super important at the start of the game. You really want to stack it as high as you can before the Black Death comes around. Then we're going to do religious diplomats for some more diplomats, and also because I know it from EU4. And that's about enough for the clergy. Now the burghers, probably the most important estate at the start of the game, since they can actually build stuff. So what I'm going to do is give them a ton of privileges. I'm going to give them this for market attraction. Remember what I said about creating your own market. That's important. Then I'm going to give them building rights and building roads rights. If the burghers are rich enough, they will construct buildings and build roads for you. And it's good for us to progress towards centralization. I'm also going to give them the advisory council because obviously, you know, these bottom ones right here that you see everywhere steer us towards certain cultural values. So it's good to give out privileges that steer you towards a cultural value you want to go towards. Oh, actually, and control of the coinage, pretty important. And then finally, we have the peasants, obviously the, you know, the least relevant power-wise estate in your country, but definitely by far with the most pops. You definitely want to give them autonomous villages. I've noticed a lot of countries do already start off with that one, and the ones that don't, you want to give it to them. Then you should also, in my opinion, give them free mobility. You don't really want to lock these guys down. I think it's better for the economy. Interestingly, we also have a unique peasant privilege right here for Serbia for garrison size and fort maintenance. Why not? It's unique. Then hunting permits is pretty nice. And probably the most important one, militias for plus 20% peasant levy size and levy combat efficiency. This, of course, does mean they can rise up and beat your ass. Now I'm going to go ahead and ally Bulgaria and Wallachia. After you've done all of those things, you're generally going to want to go back into the economy and max out minting until you don't get inflation. And I like to mess with the tax right here until the estate is satisfied. So I'm going to lower it for the clergy, increase it for the burghers and for the peasants since they're happy. There's no need to waste this much on Diplo at the start since we're not going to have that many relations. Turn off fort maintenance, turn off army maintenance. You do want to spend as much as you can on stability at the start of the game, though. Since it is pretty expensive, I'm only going to bump it up to about 0.5 right here, and that is already, as you can see, quite a lot expensive. Legitimacy, not that deep, honestly. And then before you even unpause, you're going to want to go ahead into the production tab right here so you can go ahead and set up, you know, the entire market thing. And basically, depending on what size your capital is, you're going to want to build either a market village, a market warehouse, or a marketplace the most you can in your capital and in your other most populous provinces. So I'm going to go ahead and there we go, build 4 of them in the capital, 4 of them in this other great province right here. And then actually let's build up even more wherever we can. That's going to help us out a lot. And at this point, once you've queued all of that up and maybe even put down a road or two, if you right click on a province, this shows up, this interface right here. You can go ahead and start building some roads and try and connect your most important provinces or towns or cities. Black square, by the way, means a fort. Black circle, province capital. Now, something every nation will get at the start of the game, as long as you're close to the Ottomans, is the Turkish threat event, which basically spawns the rise of the Turks situation, which makes the Ottomans so fun to play. The most powerful Beylik, which is almost always the Ottomans, gets events that make them integrate provinces super quickly. They get events where all of these guys become automatically your vassals and stuff, and they can actually create CBs to conquer someone next to them, unlike almost every other nation in Europe. At least that's a situation that's relevant to us. Obviously, at this point, you also have the 100 Years' War going on over here. And once you put down a couple of marketplaces, the trades will show up, and it's that simple. You just go ahead and click this to create a trade, and you will be trading in these things right here. Once you open up current trades, you'll see them right there. In the early portion of the game, you're gonna want to check this pretty often to get rid of the bad trades and get some more good ones in. If you automate this at the start of the game will focus on trades for pop needs, which you don't really need to focus on. Focus on trades for profit. After about 10 or so years, you can automate this because then all your pop needs will have been met and the game is going to focus itself on trades for profit. And sometimes trades for pop needs are also trades for profit, but the game would take these ones too. That's not something you want to do at the start. Now, why do I recommend building marketplaces and buildings like that? Because it increases your trade capacity. As you can see right now, we have 0.0 out of 3.3 because we're using all of it on these trades. And actually this one uses quite a lot of trade capacity for not that much income. So the more marketplaces you build, the more capacity you have, and then once you create your own market, the more attractive your own market will be. An excellent event that shows up at the start of the game for Serbia, and one reason I do recommend them quite a lot for newer players, is the Dreams of Your Ruler right here, where you gain a conquest CB or a claims on various provinces that Byzantium owns. Now, as you all know, man, Byzantium, it is pretty big, and most of you would think they are easier or more powerful than they are in EU4. Sure, they're more powerful. I don't know about easier. All I'm gonna say is, with Bulgaria by your side, and you're playing as Serbia, or vice versa, you're playing as Bulgaria and Serbia as your ally, you can absolutely obliterate Byzantium and their boys Epirus and their ally Trebizond. So as soon as you see that event, boys, it's time for war. So go ahead and right-click on Byzantium, click on the Declare War button, make sure to call in Bulgaria. This is where you go down here to select your CB. I'm going to go ahead and go into the province view right here, and we're going to select Claims on Central Macedonia. And with that, you've chosen your CB, and you can go ahead and declare war. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we've started our first war. This is who we're fighting, Byzantium, Epirus, and Trebizond. It says 0 because no one has levies, but you fix that immediately. You just go into this button right here and hold down Raise All Levies, and you'll go ahead and raise these guys up. Sure, you can go ahead and hire mercenaries at this point as well, but they are really expensive. And for this specific scenario, I don't think we need mercenaries. The first thing you actually do is you hire a merc leader, and then once you have him, he either brings some guys along with him, or, you know, you can choose how many he brings along. But mercenaries, absolutely OP right now. Now that my entire army is here, I'll simply go ahead and merge it with that button and click on that image right there, and we're gonna go ahead and hire a general for him. Obviously, we're gonna go with whoever's most powerful in mill skills. And now I've slowed it down to speed 4 for you guys, so you can go ahead and see this battle versus me and Epirus right here. That is what the battle interface looks like, and there we go, an easy win and an easy 15% war score. All right, let's go ahead and siege. When at war, you either want to occupy their capital if it's easy to get, or you want to go for these provinces with black dots. Those are the province capitals, and for example, if we occupy Komotini right here, we won't have to occupy every other location that's in the province of Evros. Same thing with Thessaloniki right here, or with whatever this province is. You don't have to siege every single location. Focus on the province capitals with black dots. Interesting thing to note, the further you move away from your homeland with your army, the less morale they have because they're far from home. Something you want to keep an eye out when sieging is the food supply. The further away you are from home and the less provinces you have sieged behind you, the harder it is to get supply. So, supply and logistics does matter a lot more in EU5. Once you occupy a province capital, these little icons show up on the provinces that'll automatically convert to you because you've occupied that specific location. And with this specific war lasting only a few months, we're actually ready to peace out, ladies and gentlemen. No more all-out wars like EU4. Wars work way better. So we're just gonna go ahead and click on this little button right here, and then we're gonna go ahead and sue for peace. You have various other treaties that we don't have time to get into right now, but we're simply gonna go ahead and go into the provinces, and we're gonna take Central Macedonia. Then we're also gonna take Halkidiki right here. We're gonna take Lower Macedonia. We're gonna take Pirin. We're gonna take Upper Macedonia, and then why not take this tiny little province right here? And there we go. They are willing to accept. We're gonna click on the money. There we go. They're not willing to give us money. And just like that, we send the demand, and that easy war versus Byzantium as Serbia is done. Now you see why they're a beginner-friendly nation? I hope you do. Once the war is done, we're gonna go ahead and go into our army right here and disband all our levies. And once you wrap up a war, it's time to do the most important thing in the game. Go into your cabinet right here and tell every one of your guys that in the cabinet to integrate province. To integrate a single province usually takes about 20 years, so it is very slow, but once again, if you're playing someone that's way faster, you can do it way faster. So there we go. I'm gonna select that guy to integrate that province, and this guy to integrate this province. Both of these use mill, so make sure to find, you know, guys with high mill skills, like this guy. Antagonism, not bad. And this is the event you get once you conquer a big portion of Byzantium as Serbia. This is our moment of glory. Our country will change from a kingdom to an empire. We gain prestige and we create a new autocephalous patriarchate for ourselves that a bunch of other Orthodox nations will join. So instead of Byzantium being the leader of this patriarchate, we are the leader. These are all its members. We don't have time to get into what all of these international organizations, especially the religious ones, do, but just know it's all good. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, just a brief overview of Europa Universalis 5, at least as much time as I had to give you an overview. It was 30 minutes max, so I decided to show off a little bit of everything and then a little bit of gameplay. I'm sure other creators will have different types of videos, but that's it for me, man. Obviously, a lot more Europa Universalis 5 videos coming up whenever I do get access to the game again. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure to hit that subscribe button because we're going to be shifting full gear into EU5 exclusive content once it drops. So boys, this is the place for EU4. It's got to be the place for EU5. But that's it for me for now. See you next time.